One second. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Create Talks, where you get to hear from creatives around the world that are changing culture, changing the world. I have on my wonderful time today, Josie Lewis. Give it up for Josie. Woohoo, Josie. You are such an entrepreneur. You have been an art. You were involved as an art teacher as well, right? You did so many different things regarding art, but you began to do something called flow art. How many years ago was it?
Well, around 2015 was when I kind of like discovered the science of flow.
Yes. Okay. And then you started to do that on Instagram and other socials. And then it just kind of went viral, and we'll talk about that today. But welcome, Josie. Josie's from Minnesota, where it's cold and it's freezing, but it's beautiful. And we're so glad you're here. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to know in the chat so that we can feed that to her. But we're doing a business of creativity this Saturday in just a couple days, and you're one of our keynote speakers. So share a little bit about what you'll be talking about and why this would be a good investment for people.
Yes, so excited. Thank you so much for hanging out with you here today, Theresa, and I'm excited for this weekend. It's always so invigorating to be around you, and I love it so much. So, one of the things, one of a big passion for me is creatives that want to make a living from their art, and it we're in a time like none other in the history of the world. It's a true renaissance for creatives and artists and makers, and not everybody who is a creative necessarily wants to make money from their art, but those that do have incredible opportunities at this moment. And so that's something I really like to talk about. So that's, me plus, your other incredible group of speakers and folks that are involved in the weekend are going to be talking about that.
Yeah, we really are. I mean, I have to say, one of the things that happens for you and for me and for all of us out there that need to understand the power of making, the power of creativity, is that these ideas aren't just meant for ourselves. And somehow, I don't know what happened, that the disconnect of, oh, I'm just an artist by myself trying to make it work, or an entrepreneur in anything, writing, any kind of creative expression, and they kind of eke out their existence like, just like, okay, it means that I'm in poverty, I can't do this. And we know, because we've heard that from the language of the schools for years. But that's not true, because there is more today to help you to become creative than ever before. And why not learn the kingdom? Why not learn from what God could do in your life, as well as learning just basic techniques and things that you can do? And so the business of creativity that's coming up in here, it's really meant to inspire you. It's meant to help you to grow in who you are called to be. And to do that, you need help. Like I know, Josie, there's so many people that you leaned upon during those early times to know, okay, what does it mean to do a TED Talk? What does it mean to go live? There's so many different things that you had to learn. And so these amazing speakers will help you to into that dream, to help you to grow. You can register on theresadedmon.com, learn more, but you're going to learn prophetic sessions, how to have practical strategies to grow a kingdom creative business, breaking off defeating mindsets. I know, haha, none of us ever deal with fear when we decide to go after our dream. Plus, you have 7 incredible workshops. You choose one, but all the rest are recorded. I talk about how to build a creative team around you. Kevin talks about how to put it all together. David will talk about developing a creative kingdom business plan. Alex will talk about podcasting. Why is that important? How to start that. Noemi and Lucy will talk about website design with your brand, how to do that. Valerie will talk about making your creative dream a destiny. So vital. And then Debbie will talk about marketing strategies. So I want to really encourage you guys, check out that on theresadedmon.com and sign up now because we're only 2 days away. And I don't know about you, Josie, but there's so much that if you don't know where to start, sometimes you don't start. And so knowing what is needed in a website can be that first launch, knowing, okay, well, maybe I should podcast first. Like all of that will be laid out for you so that you can get going into your dream in whatever part of your destiny that you want to grow and move out into. So come.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, I had a vision that perfectly segues into what you were saying. Something that I think a lot of creatives feel is overwhelm because there's so many things to do. And so I was thinking and praying about that. This is some years ago. And I had this vision. I'd recently been watching these nature documentaries. And so this image came back very strongly, which is these herring that swarm. There's these swarms of herring. And then there's dolphins who, of course, make their lunch out of herrings. But what happens, the reason that they swarm is because it confuses the predator fish and they can't pick one, because they just get confused. But these particular dolphin had learned this way of hunting where they would send one in that would scatter the swarm of herring, and then these individual herrings would like shoot off, and then they'd get munched by the dolphins. And I was realizing that I feel like a lot of times I'll feel like I am in this sea of herring and I don't know what to grab. And like exactly like you said, I don't do anything. Then I'm just like, it's all too much. I don't know what to do. And it all seems equally important. And I'm just stumped. And so I think that's a great time to get counsel, to hear from someone who's gone on ahead and can be like that scout dolphin that dives into the swarm and then, the school of herrings, and then these ones like shoot off, and then it's like, that's the one. I'm going after that herring. I'm not going after all of them, just that one. And
Yeah,
that can be a really helpful way to just start to make progress.
I totally agree with you. And it's always better together. I cannot tell you guys how many times like you'll be hearing someone like Josie or myself or Nancy Vu or others that are on or our workshop, and all of a sudden there'll be that aha moment. You go, that's it. That's why I'm here. That's what I'm supposed to do. Because there's steps to building a business, there's steps to building a dream. And in that, God always provides if you ask for what is the next step. But if you don't make yourself available, you'll never ever get to where you want to go. So I love that story. That is so cool. Man, I love watching those documentaries as well. And so do
They're
my
so
friends.
beautiful. Yes, they're so beautiful.
Oh, they are. So let's talk about your story. I'm so excited. If you have any questions, please put that in the chat.
Yeah.
Share, Josie, share about what happened in your family that led to your cathartic release through creating with flow art. What was the thing that happened?
Yeah, so I've been an artist my whole life. My father, who actually recently passed away, was also a painter. And so that was, creativity was so highly valued in my house growing up. And then I went to college for art, and then I went to grad school for art. And really just dove in. And was a painter. I was, at this point, I was like fully in the brick and mortar world. So I was teaching at the college level, painting and drawing. I was doing gallery shows and selling my art, and all the things that you do outside of the internet. I wasn't really involved in the internet. And so this is, we're now talking 10 years ago or something. Then I married late in life and we had a baby, my little Gigi, who is now 11. And everything was conventional, except for the fact that I was like an older mom. And then my life just like exploded because I was like, what is this? I don't understand. So that, just the normal things that happen when you have a baby. But we wanted to have another one. We're going for two. And then the wheels kind of fell off the bus. Things got really tough because I had multiple pregnancy losses, including a full-term stillbirth. And that was, just radically devastating. so difficult. And besides the loss and the grief, I was
Yeah.
also not a great pregnant person. Like I was sick all the time, and it was, I had a couple bleeding events that were really scary. So it was like hard physically. It was, of course, very hard mentally. And then I had a 2-year old, so I was like managing being a parent and, you know, trying to keep it all together. And around that time too, and I'm sure it was connected, I was kind of sick of being an artist, and I had had
Mhm.
moderate success as an artist up until that point, but I never really felt like I'd found my people. So I was kind of like, I don't know that I am doing what I want to do. Like, and
Yeah.
so I quit. I was like, all right, I'm
Come
gonna quit.
on.
I'm gonna quit being an artist. I don't want to do this anymore. And it was in, all as I was going through all these losses, which was like a 2 or 3 year period, where we were really trying to have another child. And then so I decided to quit being an artist, and I started writing, and I started doing some other things. I'm like a productive person. Like I tend to want to make things. So that's just part of
Yeah.
who I am. Then I found that I had these old watercolors, and watercolor had never really been one of my mediums, but I started just doing these like doodles with shapes. So I'd paint hexagons and I'd paint stripes, and it was very, very simple, usually a spectrum, like a rainbow. And I found that I would drop into this wonderful, like almost meditative state that gave
Mm.
me so much relief from my mental agony, from even physical pain, because
Yeah.
I was having physical, just like exhaustion and pain and soreness and all the things. And those things would kind of go to the background. And
Mm.
I'd experienced that before, but I'd never needed it, like I did when I was going through that really, really intense
Yeah.
grief stage of my life. And so I was really curious about it. I was like, it almost felt pharmacological. It felt like I had had a glass of wine. It was like, what is happening to me? This is so crazy. It's just all I'm doing is painting stripes, but I feel like I'm experiencing this release and this resting and this relaxation. And so I started reading about it, and it turns out I was experiencing something called flow, which most people, if you're a human in this world, you've experienced it. And it's when you're doing something and you fully fall in to the experience of what you're doing. And when I ask people, they say certainly art or music or gardening or cooking, or my neighbor says it's small engine repair, like so there's a lot of different
Yeah.
ways to find flow. I think it's something that humans just do naturally. And so I didn't discover it. I just realized what was happening in my own
Yeah.
mind. And there's actually, loads of research of what's happening in our brains when
Yeah.
when we fall into flow. And it is healing, and it does provide emotional rest, and it's, very powerful.
It totally is, and, you've done a TED Talk on that too that people can look at, the power of flow, and it really is it's where you kinda let go of your own, like, you're not present there, you're actually in the moment somewhere else, and you're letting go of the pain, the fear, and so that thing that you talked about is so important for when we're dealing with ongoing stress, when we're dealing with stuff that we don't have control over, that can be a huge deterrent of living your life. And so this you found really helped you out. But how did it lead to a huge swell of engagement on your social media? Because then you began to do it on Instagram, in other places, in YouTube, and tell us what happened and what you found out that the culture needed besides you.
So I I had quit being an artist.
Yeah.
And yet I was painting rainbows with watercolor. But
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, I would never use this for portfolio development. I'm not trying to sell these. I'm not trying to create a exhibition. Like I just didn't have that interest anymore. But I was also curious about different things. And so one day I like filmed it. I just set up my camera and I filmed the process of, making these hexagon paintings with watercolor. And then I made it into a time lapse. And around that time, Instagram had just made it possible to share video on the platform. Up until that point, it had just been photography. And I had, 170 followers or something. And, so I posted the video of this, it was like a 30-second clip of me painting what I sped it up, it was me painting watercolors, and it went viral. It got 30,000 views or something. So then I was like, well, isn't that weird? So I did it again. I did it the next day. I made another video, and that one got 50,000 views. And so that was in 2016. And I have posted a art video on Instagram every day since then. There's
What?
been a video every single day. And then of course now I'm on Facebook and YouTube and Pinterest and TikTok and all the channels. And so now I'm posting 50 videos a week on all the different platforms.
Now, what did you find out? Why do you think that people are so hungry to just flow? Now, guys, what that means, like when she says the flow, it means like she is basically the process of her painting in a pattern style is so attractive because it helps people to get out of their head of worry, fear, anxiety, and just watch the colors emerge. It's kind of like it's like an encounter style of art that brings people peace and joy and a sense of well-being. Now, when you did this, what were some of the remarks? What were some of the things that you discovered about your audience? Like, why was this so needed? And this happened before COVID, which is very interesting, which we'll talk about in a second. But tell me, what were some of the responses? What was happening?
So there was two main things that happened with the art videos. And the first thing was that I think that people were able to experience my flow with me, because I was in flow when I was making the art, and then I recorded it and published it, and then people, I think they felt it. They felt it's so simple. It was just hexagons, but because I was in that zone, it was able to be translated and communicated. So I would hear from people that would say that they were stressed out at the DMV and then they watched my videos and they calmed down. Or parents that would say they would have cuddle times with their 5-year-old and watch Josie's art. I was requested by name from little kids, that were like, let's watch Josie. We want to watch Josie videos. And it was helping people to, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on the internet, as you may know. So
Oh, yeah.
I provide rainbows, like very satisfying, like different kinds of art, and just watching the process go down in 30 seconds or less. And it provides that little bit of a window of relief and respite and rest and pleasure, pleasure of the
Yeah.
color and pleasure of the materials. And so,
Yeah.
many people just enjoy it just for the cinematography of it. And
Yeah.
then a very big amount of people also said, this makes me feel like I could make art, because you're not doing it. You're not like painting the Sistine Chapel. You're just making stripes with watercolor. I could do it. Like, yes, you could. Yes, you can. You can
Yeah.
do it.
It gave people permission to create at any level, and I love that. What happened during COVID? Because when everything happened when COVID hit in 2020, what happened with your audience? Because there were so many of them trapped in their homes now. So what did you find out that happened then?
Well, then this is the segue to the business stuff, because I'd been an entrepreneur in the real world as an artist, mildly successfully, not excessively, but it was working, like I
Mhm.
was building a life that way. But then when I figured out like people love to watch my videos, then I'm always thinking of the angles. So I'm like, well, what can I provide for them that they will help them, besides just my free content. And so I certainly sell art. I still sell art, and I still do, commissions. I just finished a really big commission for a company here in the Twin Cities. That was, several months, six-figure project, very, very big deal. And then I sell, small art on my website, but then I also have digital products. and I have a watercolor course, and I have a acrylic course, and I have a color mixing course. And so over the years, I've been developing more and more of these digital products to help people to come, if they want to go deeper with me, I invite them in and tell them what to do and how to do it. And it happened to be very convenient to be releasing that. I think I released my first course in December of 2019, which
Wow.
happened to be good
Right
timing.
before COVID. Yes, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy how God sets us up, right? I think I launched Create Academy in person, like weekly times after doing my coursework in 2020 as well. So there's so many things that God sets us up for to get us to where we need to be. And to help our audience process, which I love. One of the things that I wanted to camp out on for the creatives, and if you have any questions, let me know. But one of the things that you have to realize, guys, is like the way that we process our lives and even our pain, God repurposes it. Like it's not like it's ever wasted. And even that time that you were going through so much pain in the heartbreak of what you lost during that 2-year period, it's like God began to do something inside of you where the art began to flow, but it began to tell a story. And so a lot of times I think that as creatives out there, you need to know that people enter into your story when you create something. People can sense what was happening on the inside as you are creating, and whether it's music or art or dance or writing. And that's why sometimes you can watch a person who's in the state of feeling what they're really, really sharing about, and others who are just trying to do a great presentation, but it's not from the heart. We all know that, like in The Voice or whatever, there's certain people, right? We all know that, where it's like, oh, that person, I don't know what it is, but I'm drawn to that. And that's because they're fully present and I believe the kingdom of God enters into that space that can even give them a spiritual experience too, which is awesome. I love what's happening. So I just want to say out there, guys, sometimes people, I think, Josie, disqualify themselves because they've gone through a hard time or because things haven't worked out. But I believe that stuff that's inside of them was very fruitful in the places and the people that they're going to reach. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to on my for my presentation at the event this weekend, I'm going to talk about the hope and how important hope is to be able to bring what you have to bring to the world, because we will encounter resistance, and it's resistance within and resistance without. We will find that we things don't always go so easily. Sometimes it's hard. And so we have to have grit and we have to have persistence. But the only way to generate grit and persistence is if we have hope that it actually matters, that we can actually
No.
make a difference, that we can't, that what's on our heart to create or bring to the world is something that is going to help people and is going to bring joy and bring healing and all the things. And if we don't believe that it's possible, then we'll encounter one hiccup, one rejection, one disappointment, and it will be too painful and we will not carry on. And that's so I really want to dig into that, because we have to be tough as nails, my friends.
Me
Creatives have
too.
to be tough as nails.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Tough as nails. I love that because that's exactly right. And Jesus was that way. And he said, like, hey, you're gonna encounter trials, you're gonna go through stuff. I mean, obviously, Paul said that in his letters about the things that he endured. But that's what makes you stronger. So many times people think like, no, that's not a good thing. Actually, I think it makes us more resilient against the plans of the enemy to stop us from moving forward. And I think community backing you, your husband who backed you, having things in place so that you're not like a little reed standing there by yourself, but you have, like Moses, you have Aaron and Hur on either side. Okay, hold up my hands. And I feel like that's part of the beauty of people knowing us, is like knowing like Like this isn't something that is going to overwhelm you. I've gone through a hard season, like what you're talking about at this business of creativity, and therefore you can too. I mean, and we all know the case studies of, okay, the thousandth time Thomas Edison discovered the light bulb. What if he would have given up on 999 or whatever? You know what I mean? Like it's those kinds of stories that we need to talk about, because it's just one more time of being faithful, one more time of moving forward, and then it starts to push you into more of a momentum. But let's talk about momentum now, and because I love this story. Share about what happened with Michaels and
Sure.
other
Yeah.
projects that you've been recently working on, and how there's been a snowball effect, it's like there's been this momentum that has been being built up because you do one every day. I love this. So share about that. Share about the power of your story in how it built momentum.
Yeah. So I was curious. That's the first thing. I was curious, like, why are people so interested in these videos? So I kept making them. And then I was responding to my audience while also being true to my own heart. And sometimes that's a bit of a tightrope to walk because we don't want to pander. We're in this weird zone where, I read an interesting article where somebody was talking about being radicalized by our audience. And I think they were talking more about like political stuff, but it's like we can, oh, people like this, I'll give them more of that. But then it ends up not being authentic and true to ourselves. So we have to like be connected to ourselves and not just connected to the audience. But if we never pay attention to the audience, then we're not communicating properly. Because when it's like I like to say that a great analogy that I think is really helpful is if I'm writing in my journal, I have a journal. It's chicken scratching, it's grocery lists, and then a sentence here and there. It's like a reference to something that only I know what it is. If somebody else read it, they'd be like, what is even happening here? But if I'm going to write a letter, then I want to make sure my handwriting is good and that the sentences make sense. And I will rewrite the letter to make sure that I'm communicating what I need to communicate because I'm now incorporating someone else. So art is very similar. If we are now, if you know, if someone on this call is like, you know what, I want to move from it's if you are a person that just is making art for your own enjoyment and your own peace and rest and relaxation, that is an amazing place to be. But if you're saying, I think there's something more for me, like I want to move to the next level, then you have to start thinking about communication. So that's what I started thinking about doing is communication. And then I was persistent and I was persistent for a really long time and things build. So my life motto is more makes more. And so it's like the more you do, the more is
Yeah.
made and course corrections come. And I think that failure is one of the best things that can happen because the more you fail, the more you get used to it. It is no longer becomes this ego demolishing thing that you need to like go into your cave and get a truckload of Christians to pray for you for 9 months before you make the next effort. It's like, no, you need to keep going. You need to fail again. That's the advice. So it's like plunging in, being consistent, taking action, thinking about communication, being resistant to failure, the
Yes.
pain that failure can, feel it and move on. Like failure is just going to be a part of it. And then keep going. And so then what's happened to me is that because I've grown a really big social media audience, I have more than I think it's over 4 million folks now on social on various platforms. Because I've had such a have such a big audience, it means I'm obviously connecting with a lot of different people, and so I have had many opportunities because of all the action on social media. So that means, I had a limited edition line of art supplies that was released with Michaels, the store in the US. It was across the US and Canada. And I'm excited to hear that there's still some in Reading. As far as I know, they're sold out most places, but maybe in your
Well,
store there will
Well,
still be. Yeah.
Reading is like a little town,
Yeah.
so that's probably why. But I loved it. I was in there going, Josie is right here with me. It was so cute. I mean, I think that's part of I think part of the dream that you're talking about, which I just think is so golden. Everybody who's listening, please, please come to the business of creativity to hear more, because a lot of people do not realize the power of failure to help you to stay on track, to learn about what you do wrong so that you can make corrections, course corrections, and also what do you want to stand up for that you feel you won't change. I mean, so there's so many things that you learn with failure in who you are and your voice. And it also helps you to know, like, your audience, you might not be picking up on what your audience is picking up on, or they might be different than what you thought. And that's why it's so important to listen, to see, to understand what God is doing, and what's happening in your social media, etc. I love this thing that that you're learning from the people that are in your audience, but that's not curtailing the breath or the message that
Mhm.
you feel is integrous to you. That's just a powerful bunch of wisdom that you should brand. I mean, that's just so true for all of us that are listening. It's such great wisdom out there. We do have a couple questions, which I love. Thanks, you guys, for joining. Shout outs to all of you that are coming on. I love, love, love it. Let me continue on. Here's a question. What about, this is a question from Wendy. What about when her daughter creates dark stuff? Should she encourage her to create and post stuff? So she's talking about, I guess her daughter, I guess Wendy's daughter is doing art. That's what I'm assuming is happening. And it's pretty dark stuff. And she's wondering if she should post it or what she should do in that situation.
Hmm. Well, without a lot of details, it's hard. It's
I
hard. It's
know.
hard to. It's hard
Not
to
very
exactly
clear.
know. But I
Yes.
guess my first question would be, what's dark? Because life can be dark, and sometimes some very difficult things can happen, and art can be a way to process that. And in fact, after we lost Esther, I made some dark art because it was really tough. And I, in fact, had made some pretty intense work about that loss. And somebody looked at it and they said, well, was it cathartic? And my definition of catharsis was that you feel better, like you release something and you feel better. And I think that is accurate. But I looked up the word catharsis, and it's a medical term that means the origin of the term is when a doctor would help someone go number two. So it was it was pooping. So I'm very sorry, Theresa. This is not what you expected.
No, this is, hey, let's be vulnerable. Come on. All right, come
And we
on.
all know that that isn't the most beautiful part of us. So then I was like, oh, that's it. I had been served some pain, and I had to process it, and I had to put it out of me, and it maybe wasn't beautiful when it came out. And so sometimes that's just the nature of, our life as humans, that sometimes what we create isn't, you know, so amazing. And then my second thing about that, I don't, again, I don't know what that questioner meant about what be something being dark. But my second thing about that is, like, you think about like Tim Burton, who makes, dark, these claymation videos that have a huge audience, and they're not Disney, they're really different, but there's a niche for that, so it's possible that what might be
Yeah.
dark to me is somebody else's, like that makes me feel, that helps me to feel like I'm not alone, because I can see that someone else is going through this hard thing that they connect with. So that those are my two responses to that.
Oh, I think that's great. I love that. I mean, I think, like, Wendy, your daughter's trying to communicate. And so when people try to communicate and they're younger, they're trying to communicate through stuff that they can't say many times in art. And so part of that is you asking questions. Well, tell me more about what that means to you. And hearing her heart, not judging, please don't judge, but hear her heart to find out what's really going on inside, because that's a lens into probably how other people are feeling about their own journey as well. So it's like what you talked about. This could be a way for her to see that she's attracting people that have a similar pain or a similar situation. I think the main thing is to talk to her. That's what I would do, and
Mhm.
see what's going on in her heart, and help her along with art, and get her to the business of creativity. Like, let her see what her art can produce, and the beauty of it being in a relationship with God and all that stuff. So, but thank you for sharing so much, Wendy, that story. We do have another question. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Let me know what you're saying. A lot of you are posting. I love it. But for people who have ideas, but just don't know, they just don't know how to get to them, and they don't know how to get them out for others to see. And so they're kind of in, I would say, they're kind of like at the airport, and they've, okay, they understand the check, the panels, this, whatever, but they haven't ever flown the plane so that other people could see where, the possibilities. What would you say to them? How would you help them to grow?
So, this is really goes back to those herring. A lot of people experience, like there's so many things. A lot of artists will say, I don't have any ideas. And then just the same amount of artists will say, I have too many ideas and I don't know how to pick. And action is more powerful than any ideas you could ever have. So
Woo!
taking action, imperfect action that you do not have any certainty about, and you will probably fail. That's the most important thing you can do. And in fact, I had a vision. Years ago, I had this beautiful vision, which was I saw angels that were above the earth, that like kind of in this intermediate zone, and they were watching the people on the earth, and
Hmm.
they were dressed as SWAT police. Like they had all this gear, like they were ready for action, and they were there to assist. But the thing that would activate the angels is when somebody took a risk. So they were waiting to see who's going to take a risk and who's going to take action, and then we will spring to their aid. We are going to shoot down the fire escape or the Jacob's ladder fire, like the whirly-gigs that they have in the fire stations. What are those called?
Yeah.
The pole. We're going to shoot
Cool.
down the fireman's pole, and we're going to go offer aid to that person. But it required the human actor to be making an action. And so a lot of us get stuck before we even make an action because we have fear. And we don't know if it's going to work
Absolutely.
out. And guess what? You'll never know. You're never going to know if it's going to work out. I have like a fairly successful business now. I still fail all the time. Things still flop. I still don't know. I try new things and it doesn't work. It's part of it. It's just the nature of being alive. But I want to get the angels on my side. So I'm like, I'm going to take steps. I'm going to take those risks. I'm going to move forward, and then the angels are going to come and assist me.
I totally agree with you. That's such a good point. And please, guys, take that to the bank too. That's such a good word of wisdom. I mean, I'll never forget when Chris Valentin, one of our senior associates at Bethel, I was at his house, and we were having a pastoral meeting in his house, and he was prophesying over me, and he goes, "And you're like the goose that laid the golden egg. You're gonna have two ones that really, stand out, that really will propel you in visibility, but you're going to have a lot of eggs in between those." And I'm sitting there going, yep, that's right. Like, and I want to just say that, guys, like, you're going to get a lot of ideas, but there's going to be some that just pop, ones that just go, oh my gosh, like your flow art, what you captured, and the message behind that for you personally, Josie, and then how it reached your audience and still does. It is part of that. It's part of the visibility that God had entrusted to you. But if you hadn't kept making those videos, if you would have said, oh, I don't know, I think I'm going to try something new. I just want to say, like, that's part of what a true creative does. When you have a message and you feel like it's reaching an audience, And, Good to Great, that book is such a great story about that. But stay in that lane because there's lots of harvesting for you to do in that lane. And that's what I love about what you're doing is that you're continuing to harvest, but you're getting more ideas. You're getting like Michael's is getting in back of you, and other and amazing opportunities are happening, but you're not stopping this one thing that is so vital for all the people that are tied to watching what you create. And I just want to say, like, guys, if I could say one thing to people that are listening, there is gold for you to find, but if you do not take a risk, if you do not like join the business of creativity or decide to post something on Instagram or Pinterest, or I mean just once a week or whatever, just to start out, but if you don't do that, you will never know the greatness that lies within you that God intended just for you. And what I love is, like, Josie, you were an artist, you were building, you were going into like teaching, etc., whatever, but you shifted gears and you began to do something different. And when you did, your business is growing by leaps and bounds because you followed the favor, but you also followed your heart. And tell me, like, why, in closing, why is it so important that people invest in something like the business of creativity, invest in the risk? Why does that pay off later in their lives?
Yeah, one of the things that I've done in my career now, I mean, I went to college, I went to art school, and then I went to grad school, which is a huge expense of time and money.
Yes.
And so that was like, that's kind of more conventional. Everybody knows, like, yeah, college is important. And then after, but one of the things they did not teach me at college was how to have a business as an artist. It was kind of like assumed, well, you're going to go be a professor, which was not my dream. So it was like, okay, well, I did learn a lot about how to be a better artist. I learned a lot about art history. I learned about how to talk about art and write about art, but I didn't learn how to sell art or how to price it or work with a gallery or anything like that. So I had to figure that out on my own. And I am wired that way. Like I'm, a pretty persistent person
Yeah.
that will try a lot of things. But I
Yes.
also bought a ton of coaching, bought a ton of courses. I've spent thousands of dollars, probably about not quite equivalent to my 8 years of college, but a lot of money to learn. What's going on with Instagram? What's going on Facebook? I got to find someone that's an expert and find how do I grow my email list? How do I, push past some of these mental blocks that I have? Like I have invested in coaching and courses and there's so many great digital resources, and what Theresa is doing is one of those resources at a very affordable price. Like for what is
Yes.
it, $79? Like,
Yes,
that
79, like a good meal. Like, come on.
right. It's so affordable. You'll have access to all the replays, and it's going to be, it's going to be one of those things that's going to help crack through some of those barriers that have gotten you stuck, and you can figure it out on your own. But why? Like, why would you do that?
No. Hey, I know exactly what you mean. And it's like for me, like you getting your husband on board, me getting Kevin on board, and other people that know the stuff that I don't know. That's just smart business plan. Like, so guys, like don't try and figure it all out yourself. Get with people that have done this before and learn, because your time is important, it's valuable, and invest in something that will pay off versus something that, oh, I didn't really learn anything. No, no, we want you to learn. We want you to grow. So I agree. Well, Josie, I want you just to impart. There's so much faith that I feel right now in this place. There's so much hope. We were talking about hope. There's so much of how to move forward that you have given people today that is unbelievable. I'd love for you to pray and impart to them right now.
Yeah, so I have this vision. Me and
Come
my
on.
visions. I have a vision, and the vision is
Hmm.
these folks that are listening live or to the recording. or just the people in Theresa's orbit that are inclined to be interested in what she's bringing to the world. I see these little coals in their hearts that are like maybe there's a little bit of orange to them, but maybe they're not really fully burning. And what's happening right now, if somebody's been listening to us talk and they're feeling hope, it's because we're breathing on that coal and that is flaming up. Like the art behind me right here. I've got this art that's flaming up right behind
Come
me.
on.
And that's what's happening. You're like, this is for me. It's because we're breathing on that coal that's inside you, and it's igniting. And so receive that. And I think that that's something that Theresa carries. So those of you that are watching this, you've been following Theresa, and it's because she's amazing. It's and she's speaking your language. She's speaking to you where you're at, and you're connecting with her. And of course, the people that she is so gracious to bring into orbit, me and others, that have also been impacted by her. So I just want to pray for that coal to get even more warm, and there be even more room for that flame to really get going, for all these precious souls that have that heart for creativity and want to take it to the next level. So I pray that Theresa would be particularly anointed in bringing that breath of awakening to the coals that are in these hearts that she's able to speak to, and for me as well. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Josie, so much for sharing these nuggets. It was absolutely so just hearing your story, hearing your heart, the wisdom that was imparted to everybody, incredible. I can't wait to see you on Saturday and to hear more about your story and more about just the things that you can give to people that are branching out into business. And can't wait to see all that God's going to do in your life through what you've already accomplished and will do. So love you, Josie.
Love it. Thanks so much.